What's going on, peeps? It's Wrath here, hanging out today, playing some Idle Heroes. I want to thank you guys so much for coming out with me today. If you liked the video, please make sure to smash that thumbs up button to show your support. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe as well. Alright guys, today we're going to talk about the top 4 heroes in the Shadow faction. Why the top 4, you might ask? It's a good question. That is because there's only 10. There's only 10 in total, so if doing like a top 5 is like half the heroes, right? So I figured doing a top 4, I thought about a top 3, but in some factions, there's just some heroes that are so freaking good, you can't top 3 it, alright? You got a top 4. So we're going for a top 4 here. If you guys don't know, there's actually 10 10-star heroes so far in every faction, as of right now. Every hero's got 10, every class has 10 10-star heroes, except for the Dark and Light. They are both at 4. Which means I assume the next heroes that come out will be Dark and Light. Could be wrong there, probably am, whatever. Anyways, we're here to talk about the Shadow faction, right? Now, in no way is the order of which these top 4 are listed mean that number 1 is better than number 4, or number 3 sucks compared to number 2. It's just they're in the top 4, alright? They're very good, some are good in different situations, some are better, more well-rounded. They're just in the list. Alright, so we're going to start here with the good old-fashioned Bloodblade. He recently did get a buff as well, where he does more damage to bleeding targets and stuff like that. He gets, I think, a bigger self-heal as well. Anyways, Bloodblade is fantastic in a lot of areas. Some people kind of trash him and say he sucks in PvP. I wouldn't say he sucks in PvP. He just needs a very good supporting team to shine in PvP. If you guys don't know much about Bloodblade, he does extra damage to rangers with his active skill. At 10-star, his active skill also heals him, which gives him some survivability for Aspen Dungeon and stuff like that. But his big deal is he's a dot dropper, alright? He drops his damage, puts bleed on the targets. While the targets are bleeding, he increases his own damage to those targets. So he's a self-buffing damage dealer, which is great. He's going to deal increased damage. He's great for killing bosses because he's going to bleed the boss and constantly deal extra damage to it while it takes damage over time from the bleed. Very good at dealing with PvE enemies, bosses, etc. Works pretty well in the Aspen at 10 stars. Tower of Oblivion, pretty well there too. He does fall a little short in PvP, I won't lie, because he has no crowd control. He has no way to stun, freeze, petrify, stuff like that. So if you're going to run him, you kind of need your team to fill that gap. You're going to need a Kamath or something like that to get your crowd control out, so he's not getting crowd controlled, so he can drop his damage. He does extra damage to Rangers, which is kind of a big deal right now. Rangers are everywhere. Demon Hunter, Ice Blink, stuff like that. So if you deal extra damage to Rangers, that's good, because generally they're going to be in a team, which means you can nuke them down a little faster with this guy. Solid choice. When enemies die, he heals. Makes him good in a lot of situations, like the Aspen. Pretty much anywhere. But there you go. Bloodblade, number 1 on the list. Solid guy, pretty well-rounded. Probably a little better in PvE than PvP, but he can be used in both. Next up here, going to be the good old-fashioned Walter. Alright, everybody knows about Walter. He's been around for a while. He also recently got buffed as well. Still a very solid hero. Walter is a little better in PvP, in my opinion, than Bloodblade, but a little worse in PvE. Alright? The main thing here is he drops really heavy damage to 2 enemies, and he has a 50% chance to stun both of them. That's not bad, okay? That's a pretty high chance of stunning. Crowd control is amazing, especially when you're hitting backline enemies. 90% of people run Demon Hunter in the backline. Some people run Ice Blink in the backline as well. If you can stun them, obviously they can't crowd control you. Makes Walter pretty solid. He also gains reduced damage at 10 stars, which is fantastic, and he drops a poison dot on the enemies he hits. So they're poisoned, they're taking damage. Over here, he recently got changed to do 20% of his attack as damage on poisoned enemies. So if someone's poisoned, he now deals more damage, so he kind of a self-buffing like Bloodblade, which is great. He follows the normal assassin thing here of having armor break and stuff like that. Almost every assassin has it. His attack has a 100% chance to poison targets. There you go. He's going to poison people he hits, deal more damage to them. Always great. When he's below 50% health, he's going to drop a dot on the entire enemy team. Or, not, liar. 2 random enemies, 125% of his attack is damage, which isn't bad. That's pretty high damage over 4 turns. So not bad. He does have low health, so he does usually die a little earlier than your other teammates, but it's not bad because even once he's dead, he's still dropping a damage over time. In PvE, he does pretty solid damage against bosses and marauders and things like that. He's not bad. He doesn't quite do as much as Bloodblade, but he still does a pretty solid amount. He's not bad in the Tower of Oblivion either because he does have that crowd control. Crowd control, always nice. And in PvP, he has a little bit more viability than Bloodblade due to the fact that he does drop a stun if he gets his attack. So, not bad. Walter's a pretty solid guy all around. He can be used pretty much everywhere but the Aspen Dungeon. He kind of sucks there. I guess you could use him to break like a node, but he's not like a long-term Aspen guy. He's not good in it. All right? There you go. Number 3, Trace, the Corpse Demon. Corpse Demon is a nasty freaking dude. All right, he's just nasty, mainly because of this right here. Anytime he takes damage, if he's taking damage from a non-warrior target, rangers, mages, assassins, etc., he has a 20% chance to freeze them for 2 rounds. That's kinda nasty, all right? Just getting hit, he has a chance to crowd control. That's pretty good. If the target is a warrior, 35% chance. So Sigmund, stuff like that, hits this guy, probably going to get crowd controlled. Makes him amazing in PvP, especially against things like Demon Hunter, who do have AoE attacks. If they drop their special skill early, they are crowd control immune. But he also cannot be frozen, which makes him completely immune to Ice Blink. Ice Blink can't freeze him, which is great. Ice Blink actually will probably get frozen by him. Corpse Demon's really solid in PvP. Some people say, he doesn't have enough attack. He doesn't have a lot of attack. He's not meant to have a lot of attack. He's kind of like a big, giant crowd control dude to attack the enemy team with. It's not bad. It's good to have him. He has quite a bit more use in the Tower of Oblivion than a lot of frontline tanks. Sigmund's not bad there either. But this guy's crowd control can really save you on some of those tougher nodes where the enemy is like all crowd controlling heroes. If he can kind of get some of them frozen, it can really change the game for you. It's pretty solid, actually. His active skill here is a frontline freeze with a pretty high percent chance, 42%. That's not bad. That's nothing to raise your nose at. It's a pretty high percent chance to freeze for 2 rounds. And he also heals himself for 20% of his total HP, and it can't be dodged. That's not bad. Self-heal on a tank like this, not a bad deal. Also, when he falls below 50% health, he heals himself for 440% of his attack for 3 rounds. So for 3 rounds, he's going to keep healing by a decent amount of health, not to mention his active skill if you have healers in your team. You can use him in the Aspen, I guess. I've never really done it. Just going to say it. He doesn't have the damage to outdeal any kind of healing nodes. So if you're running into like Gurkis, Ormus, Norma even, this guy's not going to kill them. You'll probably just end up in a situation where either they both have full health, or if it's a high node, they'll probably just kill Corpse Demon. Okay? He doesn't have a lot of damage for the Aspen. Maybe for a couple of nodes you could drop him in to kind of soak up some damage off of like assassins. I wouldn't think he's really great there. Same thing with bosses and marauders. Not really a lot of use in the boss marauder area because you can't freeze him. So he kind of loses his viability. But still in PvP, a really solid frontline tank. The Tower of Oblivion, really solid as well. May have limited use in the Aspen Dungeon, and probably pretty solid in the Brave Trial as well, because anytime you can self-heal, it's always a good deal. There you go. That was number 3. Now, number 4, the last guy on the list here, it's going to be Kamath. Kamath is like the souped-up, manly boss version of Karma. All right? Karma was an awesome hero. She's still pretty viable, but this guy is a little bit better. He is going to drop Backline Petrify for 2 rounds, 35% chance, so it's not like a guarantee, but he's also going to reduce the target's armor by 30%. Now, in PvP, the armor isn't really a big deal, but when you get into like PvE fights against like marauders and bosses, this guy actually has even a little bit of viability here because he's lowering armor. Okay, when you make those bosses have less armor, your entire team deals more damage. So he's not going to petrify them, but you still get something out of his active skill, so he can be dual purpose there. He's also going to be immune to being petrified himself, which is good against things like Dark Arthindal or whatever it is. Arthindal? I don't know. I always mess it up. Karmas, other Kamaths. He can't be petrified, which is good. It means he can't be crowd controlled in one area at least. Not bad. Over here, he also does extra damage to petrified targets, which means he synchronizes very well with himself. If he petrifies people, He now does more damage to them, not to mention his basic attack hits everybody on the back line with a 20% chance to petrify them for 2 rounds. So even his basic attack can set him up to do extra damage with his active skill. Really solid hero just in that sense right there. Not to mention this last part here, when he goes below 50% health, he increases his reduced damage by 50%. So once you get him to half health, he's going to take a little bit of a while to chisel down to 0. He gets a pretty good self-buff right there in strength. He's really good in PvP. He's pretty fast. 1161, not bad. He's not the fastest, but he's pretty quick. He's really good in the Tower of Oblivion as well. Being able to crowd control people and being immune to petrify makes him pretty solid against enemy teams that petrify. Bosses, limited use. I wouldn't say he's a god against bosses, but stripping off 30 armor, or 30% of their armor, not bad. Will boost the damage of your entire team. Aspen Dungeon, probably not really his thing. Brave Trial, doesn't really have self-sustain, but you don't really need that, I guess. Still solid in that area. So he's pretty good in PvE, and he's really good in PvP. He's one of those well-rounded heroes. If you pick one up, it's never going to be a bad deal. So he's on the last slot, number 4. Now, at the last part here, this number 5, I guess you would call it the invisible number 5. It's like an honorary mention kind of deal. Heroes that have uses, but I wouldn't consider god tier. Okay? Field. A lot of people talk trash on Field. They say, oh my god, this guy is absolute butthole. And in, I would say, about 75% of situations, that's not a lie. He's absolute butthole. But in those 25% of situations, he actually can be pretty useful. If an enemy team is running very heavy assassin, Bloodblades, Walter, stuff like that, this guy's crowd control really kicks in, because he only stuns assassins. It's kind of like Lutz with mages and ODO1 with priests. He's going to deal extra damage, or not really, does he deal extra damage to them? I don't know. But he does stun them, and that's what's important. Not to mention, his first passive skill here is every basic attack he does has a 75% chance to stun the target for 2 rounds. So if the enemy is running a Sigmund, Ice Blink, or Queen, even, in the 1 slot, this guy can drop a stun on them for 2 rounds, and if you stun a Sigmund, he's trash. He's completely useless. His counterattack does nothing because he's not counterattacking. Same with Queen, and if Ice Blink's in the number 1 slot and you stun Ice Blink, obviously he can't crowd control your team, which is pretty solid. He does do extra damage to stunned enemies as well, which means that he's not even completely useless if he's silenced, but he's got pretty low health, not super high damage, and he's very situational. Very situational here. I want to stress that. He's not an all-around amazing hero. He is situational. In a lot of situations, he sucks. I'm just going to say it. Sometimes he's really good. Sometimes he's absolutely not. One of those heroes. All right. Karma here is the weaker version of Kamath. I list her here as like one of the honorable mentions because of this passive skill back here at the end. When she falls below 50% health, she increases her attack by 100% for 3 rounds. So if she doesn't die, she's going to be doing double damage, essentially. Not bad. That can be a really nuke hit. You can drop some serious numbers. It's not bad. She has a pretty high base attack anyway. She is slower than Kamath. She does get 2 speed boosts being a priest in the tech, but Kamath's immune to petrify. Still a really good hero, I would say. Kamath's just a little bit better because he's more well-rounded. She does have the petrify for the back line. Increasing allies hit. Not a huge deal. Not terrible. Just kind of in there. The last one we're going to talk about here for a second is, well, we'll kind of split it here. Lutz. Just going to say it. I know a lot of people are like, Lutz is trash. He pretty much is. But early game, he's easy to get him to 9 stars. And again, he's one of those situational heroes. If you fight people using ODO1s, Flame Strikes, Aidens, things like that, this guy's actually pretty powerful because he'll stun them. If the enemy's not using mages, he's going to blow a big fat one. All right, that's just the way it is. He's going to suck. He's not bad in PvE, though, with his reducing of armor by 20%, meaning since he's so easy to get, you can run like a 6-star, even up to a 9-star Lutz, using him as fodder later for a 10. But using this guy to kind of knock off the armor of enemy bosses so your team does more damage. Not the best hero at it, but he's all right. And a lot of people like Aiden. I've never been a big fan of Aiden. I'm not a huge fan in general of heroes that only get better when your team dies, because it's too random to know which hero's going to die first and which one's going to die last. Sure, you can pump this guy with reduced damage, give him HP stone, try to make him last longer. Doesn't mean he will. Okay, he can get singled out by assassins in the back line or something, and he can die. I'm just not a big fan of heroes that get stronger when your team dies, because if your team's dying off, you're not doing well. All right, you're in trouble already. So he's not bad. He does have the ability to silence warriors. I would say if his active ability got changed to stun warriors for 2 rounds, he'd be more of a viable pick. But as of right now, I don't know. Some people really like him. I'm just not big on him. But since he has got some use, he does make it into the honorable mention area. You'll notice there's only 2 heroes that don't really get a mention at all. That is Bade, the god himself, absolute butthole, and Dominator. Oops, that's not Dominator. This guy. Big HP wall, does have okay healing and some crowd control. He's just not that great. If you're going for a tank in the Shadow faction, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be Corpse Demon. The one time you don't take Corpse Demon is because you never get a Corpse Demon and you're stuck with Dominator. All right, so there you go, guys. That is the top list of the Shadow faction heroes. Bloodblade, Walter, Corpse Demon, and Kamath. Your big number 4s right there. That's what you want to aim for. The other ones can be situational. They're okay if you can't get anything else. But those are the big 4. All right, we'll probably do this for every faction. But there you go. This was the Shadow faction today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you liked the video, please make sure to smash that thumbs up button and show your support. If you're liking the channel, make sure to subscribe as well. Tell your friends about it. It definitely helps me out. And I will see you guys in the next one.